I'm Bobbe Nolan, and I'm at Sacred Threads in Herndon, Virginia, and this is my quilt, and it is called Después el Mar de Lodo. Después means afterward, the sea of mud. And this is the almost forgotten story of the rear guard of Santa Anna's Mexican army after the Battle of San Jacinto, which Sam Houston won in 18 minutes. After Sam Houston won the battle, the question was, what happened to the Mexican soldiers? The Mexican soldiers who were near the front with Santa Anna were either killed in a massacre or pulled together and marched back to Mexico. Santa Anna ran away and hid, but was later captured. And the story of what happened to Santa Anna is a very long and complicated one, but he lived. The rear guard was some 20 miles away on the banks of the St. Bernard River, in an area that now is called the Lissy Prairie, and it's near where I live. They were waiting for word from the victorious army so that they would be able to march forward and march into Louisiana, which was what they were supposed to do next after winning. So they heard nothing and they heard nothing, and then the rider came in and he was exhausted and covered with mud, and he said, a terrible thing has happened. We think Santa Anna is dead. Everything is lost. It's awful. And he rode away. Then later another rider came in and said, Santa Anna is alive and he wants you to take his trunk, which has all his fancy stuff in it, up to the front. But that was the last they heard from Santa Anna. They had no further orders. What are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to go back to Mexico? Are we supposed to stay here? What are we supposed to do? There were 9 generals with this army of, more than 10,000 men. And a whole bunch of camp followers, women and children who followed after and cooked and did laundry and did stuff for the guys. These were Mexican soldiers, short, busy, stocky, hard-working guys who had walked 1,000 miles from Mexico City to get to this battle. And now, as far as they knew, they were defeated and they didn't know how to get home. And the generals got together and said, what shall we do? I guess we have to start home. And then it started to rain. We have gully washers in Texas. It rained and it rained and it rained. The river flooded. The mud was thigh deep. The general said we have to try and get started. The oxen couldn't pull the carts. The mules couldn't pull the carts. Lots of animals died. The men and the generals worked their way to the river, waited for the water to go down, made a crossing, and finally most of them got down to the coast and got home. We don't know how many, but all the generals got home and wrote long descriptions of how brave they were and what wonderful work they did. But what was left on the Lissy Prairie were the people who couldn't, the wounded. The wounded couldn't get out and the wounded died. The oxen and the mules died in the mud. Many of the soldiers died in the mud. Some of the camp followers died in the mud. And the mud covered them up, and nobody knew they were there until an amateur archaeologist dug up some metallic guidons and things from Mexican uniforms and discovered where they were. And this is their story. Here they are in the mud. And there are dead horses and mules, and there are soldiers. And it's all brown because it's all in the mud. And they were forgotten, and I'm trying not to forget them anymore.